made regarding the possible changes in his administration. And as the rainy season begins, the Department of Health has urged the public to conduct cleanliness drives in their communities to prevent the spread of dengue-carrying mosquitoes. The department emphasized the importance of cleaning out not only homes and schools but also places like churches and markets, as well as streets and public playgrounds. The department advises the public to destroy all possible mosquito breeding sites like old tires, tin cans, and roof gutters.
Good morning, DZRJ, 8:10 a.m. The Voice of the Philippines proudly presents Piracy Watch with attorney Sarah Jane Sugitan, exploring the concepts of intellectual property rights and protection, teaching you how to protect what you create. And now, here's your host, Sarah Jane Sugitan.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome on the Piracy Watch. And well, I'm back, so I'd like to thank Mr. Larry Breward and Mr. Mike O'Connor for taking over the show last Tuesday.
Okay, look up.
Last Tuesday, because I was with Director General Ricardo Blancaflor, and we had a dialogue with the Muslim traders in Quiapo, specifically to talk about a change of trade from pirated wares into something more legitimate, Yeah, and that was last Tuesday, and there will be another session on the dialogue this coming Thursday, courtesy, of course, of the City of Manila through Mayor Lim and the Intellectual Property Office of the Philippines. The Philippine Senate, meanwhile, is expected to pass the copyright law that will not only develop the copyright-based industries, but also give protection to Filipino artists. According to Mr. Harry Tambuatco, executive producer of Global News Network, the copyright bill will go a long way in protecting the interests of the Filipino media, since their creations will now be of commercial value and will no longer be easily exploited under this new bill. It is necessary that a Bureau of Copyright be created so that support for the creative sector is sustained and institutionalized. This according to Mr. John Lesaka of the Intellectual Property Coalition. He cited as an example the Copyright Commission of Korea has over 200 people working full-time to help the public protect, manage, and commercialize their works. I think the creative Filipino people deserve nothing less. A study released by the World Intellectual Property Organization in 2008 revealed that 4.82% of the nation's gross domestic product came from copyright-based industries such as books, films, music, software, advertising, and the media. The main authors of the bill are Senators Manny Villar, Edgardo Angara, Antonio Trillanes, Jinggoy Estrada, Lito Lapid, Miriam Defensor Santiago, and Lauren Legarda. Yeah, we are confident that the Senate will vote in favor of the copyright bill, which will balance the rights of readers and users on one hand and the rights of authors and publishers on the other, according to National Book Development Board Executive Director Attorney Andrea Pasion Flores. Yeah, and this morning I am joined by no less than Mr. Harry Tambuatco of Global News Network and also the Director of the DTI's Consumer Welfare Bureau of Trade Regulation and Consumer Protection, Attorney Victorio Dimagiba. Good morning, Attorney Dimagiba.
Ay, good morning. Good morning din sa mga nakikinig natin. Magandang umaga sa inyo lahat.
Yeah, and thank you for joining us this morning. We are going to talk, of course, about, the DTI and the Intellectual Property Office and how we are working together to rid our markets of counterfeit and fake items. And also joining us this morning is Mr. Harry Tambuatco, whom I quoted earlier from Global News Network. Good morning, Mr. Tambuatco.
Hello, good morning to everybody.
Yes, Mr. Tambuatco also represents Super Brands Marketing International, an international, should I say, award-giving body engaged in commerce and trade and assessing the strength of Filipino brands. Is that correct, Mr. Tambuatco?
No, Super Brands, we're the only, we're known as the global brand arbiter. We're in 88 countries worldwide, and we have a satellite office right here in the Philippines. Yeah, we branded close to 200 brands in the Philippines, many of the bigger ones, as well as the up-and-coming ones. We don't say who's number one or who's number two. We bring them into a program called the Super Brands Program.
Speaking of up-and-coming brands, Attorney Dimagiba, you are with the Consumer Protection Bureau of the DTI, and I'd like to ask, do you encourage small and medium-sized enterprises to brand and then take steps to protect their brands?
Well, I was about to ask Harry whether the super brand is labeled on the product itself.
Yes.
on the product itself?
Yes, it can be. It's on the
Alright.
packaging, the promotion, the product itself.
Yeah, because in DTI we have our own sort of similar excellence award, but this is issued to the retailer themselves, the store, meaning. So we call this Bagwis Award, I was thinking whether we can partner with Super Brand to have more retailers sell Super Brand product, and in that context can also earn the DTI Bagwis seal. Anyway, on the question of whether we are encouraging micro entrepreneur to go branding, when you talk about micro, these are really the smallest businessman, all over the Philippines, and I think most of them really deal with consumable products. So I guess branding would be more for the high-end products. I don't think it will be applicable to the small entrepreneur that sells only product in a barangay, in a small locality within the place.
So branding for retailers, it's not usually applicable. It's more on the, as you said, the high-end manufacturers, those who really create their own products rather than
Yeah,
the,
and maybe I may add, maybe
manufacturers.
Harry can add to this. Maybe branding is more on the non-consumable products. Would that apply also to food? I mean, to
We have a lot
processed
of-
and manufactured food.
We have a lot of processed manufactured food products that have branded with us. Yes, in a way, super branding being the sixth pillar in marketing. After you've identified your demand, you've done your pricing, your product, your packaging, your distribution, finally your promotion and advertising, then you move up to branding to be identified. The point that you were saying about micro businesses, smaller businesses, actually branding is very much part of their life. For example, pumunta tayo sa mga probinsya, maliliit na mga negosyo. Pag sinabi, doon sa kanto, yung lugar ni Mang Jose, doon binibenta yung mga masasarap na buko. Immediately, Mang Jose becomes the brand. The ability to identify a specific product and or service is already the brand. The ability to actually create integrity for the service of that brand is branding itself. So, actually, branding plays a very big part of our lives. Miski tayo po, my name, Harry Tambuatco, if I do anything wrong, I'm doing something wrong with my brand name, brand title. It's very much the extension of the identity of the person after promoting oneself and or advertising.
Okay.
It's product positioning. But we in Super Brands, what we do is our only strength is really our award seal. And the fact that we're in 88 countries worldwide, we branded close to 10,000 brands. In Southeast Asia, we're in 9 out of the 10 countries here. And just arrive in any airport all around Southeast Asia, immediately you will see our award seal. So the only difference is we're not local. Yun lang naman ang
Right.
the only difference.
And I noticed that your color is gold, no? This,
No, it comes in 3 colors. It's
Okay.
gold, red, and silver because of the color sensitivities of some brands.
on our Bagwis Award, it's gold, silver, and bronze.
There are levels po ba dito sa
I think
Bagwis
there,
Award?
there can be some synergy, So it's good we exchange card with Harry now. So maybe we can talk about later on branding and the Bagwis Award.
On branding.
Anyway,
yeah.
Yung po bang Bureau of Trade Regulation and Consumer Protection, BTRCP, its mandate po talaga is, of course, to make sure that the market, at least the products available in our market meet certain standards po.
Yeah,
set by the-
particularly, we implement the Consumer Act of the Philippines as well as the Price Act. We level the playing field. Of course, we are not afraid to say that we are biased for consumer. Anyway, the title of my bureau itself is
Consumer protection.
we
so-
balance it with trade regulation. What is trade regulation? We set policies, and when we set policies, we consult stakeholders. We don't just set say rules on not paying surcharge when you use your credit card. We do a lot of public hearings. We hear out the credit card companies, we hear out the banks. Of course, we hear also the consumers. But when this policy is already set, that's where the consumer protection comes in. So that's where I said we're not afraid to say that we set the rules, then we are pro-consumer, so to speak.
Pro-consumers. Meron po ba tayong mga new guidelines tungkol sa mga pirated po ng mga goods or anything?
Actually, there is an office under DTI. It's an attached agency. We call it the Intellectual Property Office of the Philippines. It works as semi-autonomous because it's headed by a Director General. and to Deputy Director General. And any coordination with DTI is simply for, I think, as an attached agency in government, you're in fact independent. You set your own policies, you set your own rules, you collect your own fees, and then you also enforce. No, but there is an interaction between IPO and DTI when it comes already to hearing of cases for violation. No? But when it comes to policies, enforcement, I think that's more IPO. No?
IPO.
And later I'll describe where do DTI comes in when in case you already catch somebody, meaning a licensed patent holder catch somebody selling fake or pirated products, and then you file a case, then it would now depend whether you want to collect damages, no, against the offender. If it is an amount that will not exceed 200,000 pesos, under existing arrangement with IPO and DTI, that is heard by the DTI offices.
The DTI.
But when the claim is more than 200,000 pesos, you have an option, no, as a license holder, whether you go DTI or you go to IPO. No? That's one area, Harry, that we actually would like to review, because if IPO really is essentially autonomous from DTI, I guess they have to be autonomous down the line up to the hearing of violations of the law. The problem with the jurisdiction still in DTI as far as 200,000 pesos below, in terms of capacity building, since we are actually out of IPO, then our hearing officers would have no benefit of that. Unlike in consumer trade industry law, up to date sila, no? We have at least 3 times a year we continue education, tawag namin dyan sa law, no? And you know
MCLE.
that, no? MCLE yan, no? And we bring them here in Manila, and we hire resource persons. The last time we had we even hired from the Institute of Judicial Academy of the University of the Philippines, no?
Nag-import pa po kayo.
Nag-import kami, no? We do like that. So, yun lang yung ano, I mean, that's one area maybe Congress can look at, because I think you have to amend the charter to have IPO solely responsible for all, everything, whether 200,000 below or higher than but then, you know, you need IPO to organize, because at the moment, I understand they don't have really hearing officer, arbitration officer to do that.
At the moment, there is a new, special project more of arbitration and mediation, alternative dispute resolution, but it's not yet institutionalized, meaning it's only a special project under the Intellectual Property Office. But you're right, ano po, may distinction eh. Ang distinction ngayon, consumers, kung if you caught someone imitating you and selling pirated ware, so if your claim is 200,000 and below, you go pala to DTI.
DTI. Oh. Pag above,
Pag
you have
above,
an option.
option.
Punta ka DTI, doon na sa regional office, you don't have to go to NCR. Or, kung dito ka sa NCR, you go to the Bureau of Legal Affairs of IPO. But I think they even call that a new bureau already, no? Hindi na yata Bureau of Legal Affairs. Yung pa rin, okay. You practice attorney.
Oo, pero it's new to me I think you're correct eh, kasi of course specialized government agency ang IPO, as you said. So, yung mga hearing officers on consumer protection and trade regulation, they will of course magkakaroon ng deviation from consumer protection na expertise din, intellectual property. So, it's good na merong specialization yung pong IPO. And but as you said, IPO is, although attached, also an autonomous agency.
Basically autonomous,
autonomous. Ayan. So maybe that's something that Congress can look into after passing the they approved na pala the copyright bill. So it's now with the Senate. Hopefully after the ARM hearing, they will of course put this in their agenda and talk about creating a Bureau of Copyright.
I was in the last meeting of the Committee on Trading Industry ng House last week, and then the chairman, si Congressman Garcia, he sort of made a report. Isa yun sa nadinig ko na they have passed on third reading the amendments to the Intellectual Property Office. Baka kasama na yung copyright doon siguro. Hindi ko lang nasundan yun because I was not asked to attend hearings. No? Hindi ko nasundan yun sa hearing, yung binabanggit ko kanina. No? Anyway, baka pwede habol sa Senate. No? pwede habol sa Senate. Pag wala namang counterpart sa Senate,
Wala rin.
wala din.
Wala rin,
Ngayon,
oo.
tulusot yan. Yeah.
Ako, may question po ako,
Sige.
attorney. No? Intellectual property is the only way a brand can protect itself, and I really identify. While DTI is a regulator by government to make sure that the consumers all toe the line. Regulations, policies are set to go into commerce. Kailangan mag-rehistro ka muna sa DTI. Hindi ka naman pwede, hindi ka naman bibigyan ng permit ng miski municipal, city. Hindi naman aandar ang negosyo mo, hindi ka pwede na umandar na hindi ka pa nagre-rehistro. Pero ang nahalata ko lang, pagdating sa intellectual property, kukonti, parang kulang ang awareness. I have brands, super brands, that deal in the millions. And, they will, brands are always not necessarily staying their product. They always like to expand and new innovations, or they will create new brands within their realm. Ang problema, nakakaligtaan nila IP. Would you believe I know of an insurance company that nakaligtaan nila, they did not register with IP.
Their brand.
Yeah, and so many, for example, let's go down even lower, restaurateurs. Marami dyan nagtatayin. Dyan sa Greenbelt, dyan nakikita natin sa Makati, bet tayo, 95 to 98% are not registered with IP. But they are registered. Pag sinabi mo nagrehistro ka sa DTI,
Business name lang yun.
Oo, pero hindi nila
BN.
naiintindihan
Yeah.
You have an ongoing campaign now, for example, register here and do business in Bataan. Or register in Ilocos and do business in Tawi-Tawi. Pwede naman yun eh. Pero bakit kaya hindi sinasama yung registration ng intellectual property? Kasi pag nag-away na sila, like ako, may nakita akong brand sa Pangasinan, Nakita ako, ano yun? Kina Rogers. K-I-N-I. Tapos Roger. Pero,
The sound.
hindi lang. Yung kulay nila pula. Ang produkto nila, manok, chicken. But you see, kawawa naman ng Kenny Rogers. Ginaya talaga sila. Now, nilapitan ko, tinanong ko, alam mo, pag hindi ka rehistrado sa Pilipinas, wala kang laban eh. And DTI will put their hands up, hey, hindi namin problema yan. Commerce yan. Nag-rehistro ka to do commerce, regulators.
Right.
But there is a lack of awareness. Maybe DTI can also improve the awareness campaign, forcing, if necessary, to the benefit of the entrepreneur. Huy, mag-rehistro kayo for your own good. That's only 1,000 pesos anyway.
Yeah, that's a good reminder to us. No? In fact, isa yan sa proyekto ni Secretary Domingo. Yung interface ng business name registration with IPO database and SEC database.
Yes, the three agencies.
No?
Yeah.
Kasi
and SEC.
sometime, many years back, wala pa rin ako sa DTI niya, no? Yung DTI naka-link na sa SEC eh. Because at that time, DTI was registering even corporate names. Pero nung dumating na kami sa DTI, ni-review namin, nag-go-overload lagi ang system ng business name kasi kasama pa yung corporation. When the law pala says na DTI registers only proprietorship.
Yes.
No? Lumabas ngayon sa mga issues, yung IP, no? Maraming
mas lumala.
Trademark.
Maraming
Kopyahan
trademark
kasi.
registered na ginagamit na business name.
Yes,
Hindi naman siya
baliktad.
makikita ng business name system kasi
Ang
hindi
trademark.
nakalink, no? Anyway, isa na yan sa I think kasama na yan sa Philippine Business Registry Project, no? That's the entire government already. It's a good reminder. I can check what is the status of that project. Pero tama yan kasi even during the time nitong si Yusek Cristobal, who is now with DTI, and he was the head of IPO.
Yes, he was head.
In meetings with meron siya diyang public-private stakeholders every quarter. I don't know whether he's still on, nabanggit yan na proyekto eh. Kasi nga, kung trademark registered ka na, protected ka. No? Kung business name ka lang,
You're not at all.
at saka ginamit mo yung trademark, then may issue na doon. Pero paano naman, kawawa nga yung taga-DTI, sasabihin nga sa inyo, ano pong pagbabasihan ko sa database ko, wala naman siya kapareho.
Correct. Walang protection.
Lalo na, sinimplify namin ang business name. You can only register within a barangay. Within a barangay only. And then you pay only 200 pesos. In which case, talagang pwedeng magkapareho yung pangalan mo sa barangay X dun sa barangay Y na nandun sa ibang probinsya. Yun po, maganda pong project. It's good, I was reminded. Pero meron pong proyektong ganon. Ama po kaya.
Protection is the game in branding. In anywhere around the world, when you do that, the brands really come after you. Dito sa Pilipinas, ang dami natin similar names. We see it all over, and that's where piracy begins, counterfeiting, kopyahan. Alam mo, even in movies, lalo na sa television, ang daming ginagaya lang nila yung mga formats. They follow each other's format. This case ongoing now with Wheeling Willie. Na Channel 2 went after them, ginagaya yung pareho format. It's the same banana. It's the same question altogether. Kinokopya mo, at the regulators don't know how to approach the problem.
But more importantly, consumers should also protect themselves by registering.
You have to register.
Brands as trade.
Alam mo, may example, hindi ko babanggitin na isang banda, pangalan ng isang banda, local bands, no? Sikat to. This is a very, bahala na kayo mag-isip kung anong sikat. Nagkawatak-watak.
Ginamit yung pangalan ng banda.
Okay.
Unahan.
Ngayon, ang ginawa, yung natira doon sa banda, nag-apply siya sa IPO. Inire-register niya yung pangalan ng banda.
Kanya na yung pangalan.
Nag-complain ngayon yung parang business manager nila dati. Sabi niya, teka, ako nakaisip niyan. So ngayon, nandun. May kaso ngayon sa... Kasi successful yung banda, but all the time, all the while, hindi nila na-register. Nobody really knows who owns that name.
But di ba the rule there is, Attorney Sara, first to file. Kung sino unang file niyan, kanya na, wala ka ng laban. Tapos na yung pasture paper ka na dyan.
Ng band manager.
Hindi kinakancel. Nag-hearing, nag-oppose siya.
Nag-oppose talaga siya.
Ngayon, hindi ko malaman kung
kanino na nakarehistro.
Kung kanino marirehistro yun. Yan mga ganun tayo.
Which is why, if sana sa DTI, tsaka sa SEC, when you register, gagamitin mo trade name mo as your business trade name. Or if you're not, you're gonna use another XYZ corporation or partnership or entrepreneurship. Pero yung brand name mo, pag hindi mo nirehistro, hindi ka matutulungan din ng DTI. Dapat talaga registration sabay-sabay yung tatlong ahensya.
Pero
sabay-sabay, essential.
Kita ko meron kaya tayong break. Kasi may share ako na this is development, no, in the consumer world, no, about copyright and the rights of consumer. May kita ko kanina lagay niya.
Okay, so that is we'll have more of Attorney Victoria Di Magiba, Director of the Trade Regulation and Consumer Protection Bureau of the DTI, and Mr. Harry Tambuatco when we return right here on Piracy Watch.
This is VOA News, brought to you live from VOA through DZRJ in Manila.
The United Nations levels a major allegation against the Sri Lankan government. Continuing protests lead to more death in Syria and Yemen. South Africa's president visits the Libyan capital. I'm Ira Melman reporting from Washington. A UN special investigator is accusing the Sri Lankan government of serious crimes against Tamil civilians in the last phase of that country's civil war that ended in 2009. Lisa Schlein reports for VOA from Geneva. The investigator has presented his report to the UN Human Rights Council.
Special Investigator on Extrajudicial, Summary, or Arbitrary Executions, Christoph Haynes, says a video broadcast last year of the final stages of the civil war in Sri Lanka presents credible evidence of crimes committed by the government against the Tamil people. He says the video, which was broadcast by a British TV channel, shows naked people with their hands tied behind their backs being executed. He says these scenes were shot against the backdrop of corpses of other men and women with similar head wounds. Lisa Schlein for VOA News, Geneva.
In Sri Lanka, dozens of people were injured after police fired at a labor protest in that country's main free trade zone. Monday's clashes occurred as thousands of workers protested against a controversial government pension bill at the free trade zone outside the capital of Colombo. Authorities say about 40 workers and police were injured. In Syria, rights activists say a military crackdown on opposition protesters in the central part of the country has killed at least 15 civilians since Sunday and injured dozens more. The demonstrators were killed as government forces, backed by tanks, artillery, and helicopters, continue to attack the city of Talbasa, Rastan, and other central communities where residents have staged anti-government protest in recent days. Rights groups say 3 civilians were killed Monday in Talbasa. Residents also found the bodies of 2 people thought to have been killed by Syrian troops in Homs, Syria's third largest city. Meanwhile, the Associated Press is reporting that residents of Talbasan Rastan used automatic rifles and rocket-propelled grenades to repel the advancing troops. One activist was quoted as saying the armed resistance was not organized, but rather involved individual residents protecting themselves.
You've been listening to VOA News, brought to you live from VOA through DZRJ in Manila.
This is an RJAM Extra.
How to save money on your beauty routine. You don't have to compromise your looks to economize. You just have to know a few tricks. You will need mascara, dollar store conditioner, petroleum jelly, olive oil, sugar, cayenne pepper, cinnamon, a lip brush, cotton swabs, and the occasional splurge. Optional, men's shaving cream. Step 1. Buy expensive mascara just once. After it runs out, wash and save the brush. The main difference between mascaras is the wand, not the makeup. Apply new, cheaper mascara with the brush that comes with it. Then use your old one to fluff and separate your lashes. A dried out mascara wand also makes a great eyebrow brush. Step 2. Replace your shaving cream with dollar store hair conditioner. It works every bit as well. Or use a brand made for men. They're usually less expensive. Get an unscented one if you don't want a manly fragrance. Step 3. Buy a big jar of generic petroleum jelly. It can serve as clear lip gloss, lip balm, makeup remover, under-eye moisturizer, and foot and hand cream. If you have just a smidgen of lipstick left in the tube, mix it with petroleum jelly and use as lip gloss. Step 4. Use olive oil as a multitasker. To condition hair, rub 1 tablespoon on scalp, wrap in a warm towel, and let it sit for 20 minutes before shampooing out. For silky skin, pour some into your bath water. To turn it into an exfoliant, just add some sugar. Step 5. Plump your lips for pennies by mixing a sprinkle of cayenne pepper or cinnamon with a dab of petroleum jelly and applying to lips. It will irritate them just enough to temporarily swell them. Step 6. Use up every bit of your cosmetics. Get the last smidgen of lipstick out of the tube with a lip brush. Revitalize a dried out mascara tube with a few drops of hot water. Use a cotton swab to get into the crevices of little pots of eye cream or lip balm. Step 7. Splurge on 1 or 2 extravagances. Women cannot live on cheap cosmetics alone. Did you know? Women spend an average of $471 per year on personal care, while men spend about $193.
This is an RJAM Extra.
Slashing your debt might seem like an easy thing to do until you look at all that credit card debt. While you might know how deep in debt you are, it often requires a very hard look to actually understand how bad your situation really is. The first thing you need to do is list all of your debts from smallest to largest. Start repaying them now, starting with the smallest and working your way up.
We now return to Piracy Watch on DZRJ, 810 AM, the voice of the Philippines. Here's your host, Sarah Jane Sugitan.
Hi everyone, welcome back on the Piracy Watch, and with me this morning is the Director of Trade Regulation and Consumer Protection of the Department of Trade and Industry, Attorney Victorio Di Magiba, and also Mr. Harry Tamboatco of Super Brands. Earlier, klaro ko lang, no, we were talking about, of course, if you are in business, you have to do business. You need to register first with the DTI to get the operational permit that you need in order to engage in commerce. And, well, although it's not mandatory, yung trademark registration, we highly encourage, and even the DTI, SEC, and IPO are already working together on the Philippine Business Registry project in order for all businessmen and women to protect your brands. Yung mga pangalan po ninyo, kung nilalagay ninyo yan sa mga produkto ninyo para hindi makopya, o kaya kung makopya man, meron kayong pruweba na inyo yan, kailangan po irehistro yan sa Intellectual Property Office of the Philippines. Ayan, Intellectual Property Office, ang main po namin dito na sa Taguig, previously in Makati, and we have 10 satellite offices nationwide, also located in your nearest DTI branch. Ayan, kasi attached agency nga po ng DTI, ang Intellectual Property Office. Ayan, so before the break, we were talking about of course, protection, no? Meron, sinayad si Attorney Di Magiba kanina, there's a band na nag-break up, famous band, and then one of the members registered as trademark yung name ng band na ito and eventually got sued by the band manager. Kasi, of course, we're talking licensing. That's when the brand of that band, I'm sure, will become much more valuable sa t-shirts, royalties mo, merchandising and everything. So, the question is, to whom do the royalties go to, diba? Syempre dun sa registered owner. And well, at the moment the case is pending, so I think I'll look into that and then report it as news next episode.
I was part of a situation some 15 years ago, 20 years ago. Ang may-ari ng Hard Rock Cafe.
Hard Rock.
Yeah.
Okay.
When Hard Rock first came into the Philippines, the owner, the guy who had a franchise for Southeast Asia and Australia, he came in and he asked to see me. Inikot ko. Sabi ko, hey, you can't do that. We have our own Hard Rock. Pumunta kami, nakita namin yung Hard Rock ni Boy Gatus, the one on Malate. Doon na una yung Hard Rock niyan eh.
Malate.
In those days, patents pa lang, registration of patents and trade names. Wala pa naman intellectual property eh. But regardless of whether it was registered or not, to solve the problem, nilapitan ko na lang yung may-ari. And since Hard Rock is big, nag-usap na lang sila, and there was a fee. And so it was a business deal that was consummated. It was amicable. There was settlement. Maganda, nagkasulatan, nagkakontrata. We bought the name from him. Straight out. Then he turned it around. He called it 10 years after. Okay lang yun. So masaya. But what happens kung talagang narehistro niya na yun, di ba, at ayaw niya, at miski pilitin ko. Look at the case of Shangri-La Hotel, tsaka yung Shangri-La Chinese restaurant. Yung nanalo doon yung Chinese restaurant. Kasi, siya ang una, kusino na una, which is why really, anaawa ako sa mga entrepreneurs and corporate heads. They don't understand intellectual property. Kulang pa ng awareness eh. Mga negosyante natin, basta nakarehistro na sila sa DTI, feeling nila, or sa SEC, safe na ako, pangalan ko yan. Not real, even mas lalo na mga restaurant owners. Naawa ako. Kasi all you have to do is wait for the restaurant, bigyan mo ng 5 years. As we all know, the first 5 years is critical eh. First 3 years is for restaurants. Pag kumikita na siya, may stream of customers na siya, aba, pangalan niya XYZ. Gagawin ko sa kabilang kanto XYZ. I-rehistro ko. He has to put his down kasi first registry eh. So the entrepreneur is really not protected.
Yun ang consequences of not registering your brand as trademarks with the Intellectual Property Office. Pwede ka magka-demand letter.
Question ko kay Harry, when you have a IP registered worldwide, pero na-exclude mo yung business sa Philippines, you still have to register in the Philippines.
That's a question for Attorney Sara. Hindi pwede, territorial.
So you still have separate registration.
Kaya nga, we were pushing for the Intellectual Property Office introduced the Madrid Protocol. For some reason, our legislators are sitting on it. Really? But dapat yan, if you register in the Philippines, parang Madrid Protocol, you're good in 57 or 60 countries.
Signatories to that protocol.
You have to be signatory para safe na yung branding mo. Because branding is very important and a lot of people don't understand it, even ad agencies.
Tsaka in case you do business in, for example, nagbukas ka ng clothes mo dito, then yung brand, you take it to Hong Kong and then Singapore or China.
Yeah. Look at the case of Pen Shop. Pen Shop spent millions to register their brand names in certain countries just to protect their name. Kasi gagayahin yan eh. Anong nangyari? Pag narito lang yung Madrid Protocol, isang bayaran lang yan, 50,000, 60,000. Isang registro,
country by country.
Mura na, hindi ka pagagastos sa abogado. Kaya ang daming di ba?
Ito ngayon, so problema na nga, sabi nga nila, the war on piracy is a never-ending war. So, yan ang cliche na. Pero, nadinig nyo kanina yung corporate social responsibility. Pero nadinig nyo na ba yung access to knowledge?
Hindi ba? Bagay yan.
A2K, kung shortcut nila, access to knowledge, A2K. No, kasi I attended the 19th World Congress ng Consumers International. Nito lang first week of May, no? Kasi ang DTI is a member, affiliate member with Ibon Foundation, no? Affiliate meaning yan you don't have a right to vote pag election, no? Okay lang yan. But you are a member in all. So I attended, dito lang kasi ginawa sa Hong Kong, madali magpa-official travel, malapit lang.
Lapit.
Mura-mura lang.
Pa.
Sige, pupunta ka sa Europe o North America. So, may isang speaker doon, yung about piracy, no? Alam nyo, parang ang ano niyan copyright versus protection of consumers. No? Or copyright versus access to knowledge. Sabi nung speaker, no, he was from India and appears to be very young and very intelligent. Kasi maganda yung pag-present niya ng paper niya, no? Pero ang nag-i-evolve ngayon is why should you limit consumers' access to knowledge? No?
Through copyright
Parang,
restriction.
parang freedom of information, no?
Freedom
To
of
access.
information, freedom of speech, freedom to gain knowledge, etc. Ang bottom line lang doon na siguro dapat pag-ingatan when it comes to those IP or copyright that affects health and safety. No? Pero good example niya yung BlackBerry. How much is BlackBerry original?
Correct.
$305. Gumawa si big country sa Asia, hindi mo na sabihin. Ang tawag niya Black Cherry. Well, basically pag nakita mo siya, pareho. No? Pero sinabi niya, dinagdagan niya instead na isang camera, nilagyan niya na 2 camera. Pagkatapos, ang presyo pa, kumbaga 350 yung US dollars.
Bumaba.
Yung Black Cherry ay $50 lang. Wow. Pag-uwi na raw siya sa bansa niya, India. So dumaan Bangkok. Para sa pasalubong niya sa mami niya, binili niya yung $50. Hanggang ngayon naman daw, ginagamit pa ng mother niya. So yung parang example niya, that's a typical case of IP violation, Pero sabi niya, but when you added a feature, is it IP violation? Iyan ang nangyayari ngayon sa buong mundo ngayon, no? Pero he was not so strong when it comes to medicine. No? When it comes to something that affects safety and health.
Sharing dapat, sharing.
Pero kung ganyan lang mga produkto, sabi niya siguro, I mean, this is consumerism, no? Kasi it's Consumers International. Puro mga consumer group 'yon. Bibihira lang ang gobyerno nandoon sa grupo na 'yan. Yun lang, just want to share knowledge na when you look at it only within the Philippines, arbitration, filing a case, yan tayo dito Pero pagdating sa pandaigdigan, may mga corporate social responsibility na yan. Then how do we communicate that to corporations? Then you have green procurement, isa pa yan. Pagkatapos, ito na, china-challenge na yung very stringent rule ng copyright law vis-a-vis access to knowledge in terms of consumer protection. Yun ganun na yun Lawak ng mundo, hindi ba? By 2015, Harry, ASEAN is one economic community. That's 4 years from now. Anong ibig sabihin ng free flow of goods and services? Cross na yan. In fact, ASEAN, meron na kaming dinidevelop 2 project. One is cross-border redress mechanism. Inisip namin ASEAN.
Walang red tape.
Wala na red tape, no? Isa yan. Tsaka yung exchange of information.
Yung flow na information, mas darami.
Kasama IP dyan. IP...
There's
yung
definitely
IP registered ba sa Malaysia, i-recognize mo sa Philippines?
Hindi
Yun.
Pagkaalam ko, hindi. But access to knowledge, A2K versus copyright, without question, mahabang debate yan.
Yes.
Totoo yan, without question. Because you also have to protect the innovation of research, especially when money goes into it. Yan ang nilalaban ng mga multinationals na mga pharmaceutical. Talagang, they spend so much money to create it, to innovate, to bring it to the public and finally bring it out only to be copied overnight by another company who just uses it's like yung iPad, yung bago ngayon, no? Yeah. May lumalabas in the big country, no? Ang ganda ng description mo with the big country or middle kingdom, di ba? As they're called. Lumabas sila iPad. $105, yung isa $500. O biro mo, iPad naman.
Consumerism.
Mo, di mamahalata, no?
Wala, pareho.
You don't even know which one is original or not. But,
which is more expensive or
challenge yan no? Challenge yan sa atin, but This is, maybe byproduct na yun ng free trade, no?
Free trade, actually, I think yung freedom, access to information or A2K na palang access to knowledge, yan ang ginagamit na justification ng marami nagpo-photocopy ng libro eh. I mean, people need to study, need information.
Kasi accessible naman siya.
Nandiyan
naman siya.
It can be shared. It's online.
Basta wag ka lang magpa-plagiarism, hindi lagot ka.
Wag mo angkinin, di ba?
Wag mo angkinin. Kasi illegal yung ginagawa nila sa recto, yung nag-ano sila.
Matagal na yun.
Matagal na yun. Pero
tayo, gano'n na. Nobody had challenged those guys. They're still there.
Even in Lasal, ang anak ko, engineering, he can't buy the books here. So if there is one book, everybody, lahat nagpo-photo. Pero yung may-ari, yung author naman, siya naman ang natatalo. Nalulugi naman.
Nalulugi siya.
Yun ang problema.
Pero sa akin naman, for those who uses the material, i-acknowledge mo naman, i-cite mo. Ako, that's why, when I shared this, I said, I got this from my attendance. So
attribute.
Attribute.
Always attribution.
The other day, I was with the Credit Card Association of the Philippines, no? So, ano naman doon, yung financial literacy, you educate the consumers. Hindi lang yung benta ng financial products, but you don't tell the consumers what are the terms and conditions, in easily understood language, etc. So, yun, kasama rin sa development sa world yun. So, yung mga ganun Marami tayong pag-usapan. Yung pag-consumer protection. Yung job ko dito sa DTI, Sus Mariosep, dun sa pinanggalian ko, 30 taon ako doon, dito nalula ako. Ngayon lang nakikita niya, nagte-text ako. I have 2 meetings all at the same time. Pareho importante. So, tinatanong ko na yung sekretary ko, tanongin mo na doon sa USEC ko kung saan ako dapat umaten. Ang sabi sa akin ng sekretary ko, binalik sa akin, kung may conflict po kayo na mag-decide.
Ganun din sa'yo rin.
Okay. Okay, now we will have a live feed from the Senate with Jojo Sikat.
This is RJAM Field Reports.
I think I would rather say that rather than saying that the secretaries here were unprepared, I would say that the bill as it was given us was ill prepared. In other words, marami kung sa batas na proposed na batas na contradictory, hindi maliwanag, and this has come because of perhaps the desire of Malacanang to hurry it. Nakita naman natin na ang proseso na saan ang proseso pinaanan nitong posting na to, House Bill 4146. In the House, talagang minagalit, and the term railroad has been used. And that is why maraming deficiencies, which we have tried to correct during the hearings here in the Senate. But again, the bill itself, as it is written, to have some contradictory provisions. Well, there's a contradictory provision here. Well, the contradiction is that we are seeking to, they say the title of the bill is to postpone the election. And yet, the term of the incumbent, appointed incumbent, 3 years, which is contradictory with the desired purpose of the bill, which is rather the stated purpose of the bill, the synchronization. So, parang hindi nagpupugma. Kung nag-synchronize ka, bakit yung termino ng opisyal ay hindi matatapos sa eleksyon, sa panahon ng eleksyon. Then there was a contention made by Secretary Robredo that it is only the election that is being synchronized, not the term. But again, if you look at the title of the bill says synchronizing terms and the election and the term of those officials who are involved in that. So, hindi yung dalawang yun. ang committee report, actually, ang consensus, sabi namin, ang magandang compromise dito ay yun na nga, ituloy na lang ang halalan. At pagkatapos na natin na decision yun, na may tuloy ang halalan, papalik ang mga kongresista at ang mga senador at papasa ng mga batas na papalitan ang term para mag-synchronize na. That seems to be the least contentious proposal. But to do that, we will still have to pass a law, or we will defer this. If we defer this, then the elections go on, then we can come back and write those amendatory laws to change the terms. That seems to be the general consensus amongst the senators. Well, partial. Just include the fine. If isasama pa rin namin itong mga naging usapan dito. But the committee report is the committee report that's concerned with the hearings and the discussions previous to today has already been written. Isasama na lang namin kung ano pa ang mga aming pagpalagay na bago.
We now return to Piracy Watch on DZRJ, 810 AM, the voice of the Philippines. Here's your host, Sarah Jane Sugitan.
And now the program comes to an end. So I'm going to, well, first of all, thank our guests this morning, the Director of the Trade Regulation and Consumer Protection Bureau of the Department of Trade and Industry, Attorney Victorio De Magiba. Thank you very much, sir, for joining us.
Thank you, Sarah. One last reminder for consumers listening. We have a call center, open Monday to Sunday from 8 to 5 p.m. You can call in your requests, call in your complaints, anything that has to do with consumer. Telephone number 751-3330. Ulitin ko po. 751-3330. Magandang umaga po sa inyong lahat.
Ayan, thank you very much, Attorney Victorio De Magiba of the DTI. And also, I'd like to thank Mr. Harry Tambuatco of Superbrands for joining us this morning. Thank you very much, Harry.
Maraming salamat, Attorney. Alam mo, ang message ko madali lang. Magrehistro kayo, mga brand names nyo sa intellectual property. Wala kayong kalaban-laban na hindi ka rehistrado. You don't own your name.
All right. So for those of you interested in registering your trademarks as advised by our experts this morning, please check out the website of the Intellectual Property Office of the Philippines. It's www.ipophil.gov.ph. Again, that's ipophil.gov.ph. You have been with me, Attorney Sarah Sugitan, for the Piracy Watch. Join me again next Tuesday right here on DZRJ, the voice of the Philippines.
You have been listening to Piracy Watch with Attorney Sarah Jane Sugitan. Piracy Watch, an exclusive presentation of DZRJ, 810 AM, the voice of the Philippines.